Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio, and I'm pretty sure he probably did his 6-kilometer walk today. Anyway, we're going to start off with our foundational verse. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants, belong to the Lord, for he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Dad, why is that verse important that we have to highlight that God created everything, the world and everything in it?
Well, because it says the plans of the Lord stand firm. That's what that says.
Wow.
So living in truth means resting in the unshakable plan of God. Psalm 33:11 declares the counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart from generation to generations. So nations will rise and fall, leaders will change, but God's purpose never fails. Psalm 24 says he founded the world upon the seas, which means his creation isn't adrift, it's anchored in his design. And when we live according to his word, we find security not in politics or in possessions, but in his eternal plan. Living in truth means trusting his purpose even when the world feels uncertain.
Man, does the world feel uncertain right now. I can't imagine what it would be like if it was just stable. But that's why God is that verse, and God is our foundation because he's the stable one, right?
Well, and if the earth was stable, if everything was okay, chances are we wouldn't be learning what it means that the earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord, because it would be like, okay, go on to something else. But now it's so meaningful. You know, it's basically, like I said before, talking about the supremacy of God and the rule of law. Mm-hmm. It's understanding how this nation was founded. And because we've drifted to a place where now our leaders in this country say, we have no values. So maybe Muslim values are our values, et cetera, et cetera. We have no significance, we're really nothing, better to just get rid of these Canadians and let's move on. It's like God goes, whoa, wait a minute. I founded this country. I put it on my rule of law, and you guys, you get back to it and you'll see what freedom and truth means all over again.
Speaking of freedom and truth, we've got our next guest. I'm excited to have him. He's back, Mr. John Carpay. He's part of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. You guys are very busy. John, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be with both of you, gentlemen.
Well, glad to have you. I mean, you guys, I've got another 3 pages of everything that you guys are doing, fights in courts and letters and, defending people's rights and freedoms. And we really appreciate that. Currently, I want to talk about Chris Barber, Tamara, Lich. You guys have been doing a lot of work with them. They just got sentenced. Can you bring our audience up to date on what happened in their scenario? And then we can ask some questions a little bit about it afterwards.
So Tamara Lich and Chris Barber were both arrested in February 2022, so 3.5 years ago. Unfortunately, that's how long court proceedings take. It's bad. It should be quicker, but it is what it is for now. And they were arrested for and criminally charged for being involved in a peaceful protest in Ottawa, the Freedom Convoy protest that went on for several weeks that saw thousands and thousands of Canadians in Ottawa, and no violence, no arson, no cars set on fire, no store windows smashed in, peaceful protest. They were found guilty of mischief, and in the particular aspect of mischief in the criminal code, it is illegal to obstruct or interfere with the lawful use and enjoyment of property. And so there were some Ottawa residents, a small number, who had some difficulty in getting into and out of their residence, or maybe they lived in an apartment tower and their car had difficulty getting into or out of the underground parking. So they were found guilty of mischief. They were sentenced, Tamara, to a year and 3 months, and Chris Barber to a year and a half, 18 months of house arrest, which compared to prison it's great, right? Because you can be at home. There's conditions. You're allowed to leave home to go to work. You can spend 5 hours a week on shopping. You can have people come over to your house. You can see your friends. You can use your phone. Compared to prison, it's really good. However, compared to total freedom, it is a punishment. You know, you can't meet up with a friend over coffee. You can't just go somewhere. You can't just leave the house and go somewhere. You can't go to a concert. You can't go to a play. You can't leave your home except for church service or work or shopping. So that's where it's at for now on the punishment side of things. And we'll find out in the next few weeks whether they're going to appeal the conviction, and whether the Crown is going to appeal the sentence and demand a stiffer sentence.
So it's not over, basically, is what you're saying.
It's not over. The other aspect is that the Crown, the Ontario government, wants to seize Chris Barber's truck, Big Red. They are accusing Chris of using that truck as a tool for committing a crime, even though he and all the other truckers, they park their vehicles where the police told them to park. So it's kind of even dicey. I mean, there may have been some illegal parking going on contrary to the rules, but the truckers were following the directions of the police, who said park over here or park over there. So Chris followed the police instructions when parking Big Red. That's the name of his truck. Had the good fortune of seeing it in person. I was in Medicine Hat earlier this month, and Chris Barber drove in from Swift Current, and so I got to see Big Red. He also moved it when he was directed by police to move it. So the Crown is making the application to seize it as a tool used in a crime.
John, let me ask you this. How dangerous, how do you guys chalk this up in your organization? Is this a win? Like, are you disappointed? Is this precedent for more dangerous laws and rulings in the future? I mean, it's really kind of confusing. I don't know how much nicer you can get when you do everything the police ask you to do. I know that they've had lawyers when they were on the ground, boots on the ground there too, talking to them, trying to have conversation and sit down with the politicians and the officers and all that stuff and try and work things out. I don't know how much more polite you can be during a protest and still get kind of hammered a little bit and be in this kind of litigation that has taken so many years, wasted so many dollars. And not only that, I know that there's even like a lawsuit, a $300 million, suit coming up with even names unknown, John Doe and Jane Doe on the list for future people they're going to insert. I mean, how are we supposed to like track? Is this good? Is this bad? How do you assess that?
Well, the legal bills for the criminal defense bills for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber together in the past 3.5 years have exceeded $250,000. So we're talking about $700,000 for the two individuals. They had separate lawyers. The Justice Center is paying for the legal bills for Chris Barber, and the Democracy Fund run by Ezra Levant is paying for the legal bills of Tamara Lich. So it's $250,000. Thank God for Canadians who've donated generously to make it possible for that legal defense, because, how could ordinary citizens like Chris Barber, Tamara Lich ever come up with $250,000 on their own, right? Unless you're part of the top 1% of 1%, like you cannot come up with that kind of money. So the saddest thing about it is just the double standard in prosecutions in Canada. We've seen Aboriginal protesters against residential schools vandalizing and tearing down a statue of Queen Victoria at the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba in Winnipeg with police watching in broad daylight. That was a crime. To destroy public property, to destroy somebody else's property is a crime. No charges were laid. Why? Well, because they were Aboriginals protesting against residential schools. So the police and prosecutors are saying, well, they're the right people protesting for the right cause. We've seen Muslims banning streets in Toronto, which is a criminal code offense. You can be charged criminally for blocking a road. Okay, and that's part of what played into the Chris and Tamara thing, that some of the Ottawa roads were partially obstructed, although they always kept a lane open for emergency vehicles. So Muslims praying in Toronto, blocking roads, there's no criminal charges laid. Then you've got Chris and Tamara, who are criminally charged and convicted and now being punished. So what is really bad, and maybe Chris and Tamara, maybe that was a fair conviction. Maybe they did, participate in the criminal conduct of mischief by interfering with the lawful use and enjoyment of property. But if that is the case, if they are guilty, other people should be charged, and they're not. And that's what's really problematic in Canada, is the double standard.
Well, I know they streamed a lot of it online, so we had a really good look at what they were doing and saying. It seemed pretty mild to me. My question is, to finish this up, how do you think this impacts future protests in Canada? I mean, good. I mean, like kind of the same situation we were under. We're under this government lockdowns. The government shouldn't even have pulled the Emergencies Act. That was unconstitutional. So Canadians were frustrated. They want it to end, so they want to protest. Obviously, we have the right to protest. How does this change how we protest in the future, in your mind? Can we learn from this so that we can properly protest, that will avoid these kinds of scenarios? Or do you feel like the government's not your friend? They're more willing to attack certain groups than others. What are your thoughts on this for the future of protesting in our country?
Well, I wouldn't be afraid to continue with peaceful protest. I think a lesson to be learned is that if your protest involves obstructing other people from going about their business, if you're protesting for, if you believe that mankind controls the weather, mankind controls the Earth's climate, if you're protesting for that, or if it's LGBTQ or Aboriginal rights, then you can probably get away with a lot more. But there is an important principle, which should not cause us too much concern, is that you don't, whenever you protest, whatever you protest, you do not obstruct or interfere with other people going about their business. So, so on the positive side, if you want to see something positive in the whole situation, this was not a case of people going to Ottawa and, just protesting and leaving and then getting charged. I mean, there was kind of the Crown had a little bit of a basis for its prosecution to go after people for participating in the partial obstruction of streets. So most protests aren't like the one in Freedom Convoy. I think the message we could take from this is that if anybody tried to do something identical to Freedom Convoy, they would face difficulties. They might face criminal charges. But if it's a protest that doesn't involve, that's not like Freedom Convoy, so more of a regular, ordinary protest, then there's no bad precedent that I can see. Except, again, we've got a rotten culture that we have this double standard where you can get away with committing a crime in broad daylight if you are deemed by the authorities to be the right protester protesting for the right cause. You can get away with crime. Whereas if you're protesting for what the authorities see as the wrong cause, well, then you better watch out because they'll throw the book at you.
Yeah. Dad, you have a question?
Well, I have something to say. It's like, where's the man that started all this in the first place? Where's the man that called something emergency that need to call in the troops and cause everybody pain and everything else and started this all over? Where is he? Where is he? He's gone. And everybody that continues to find this kind of nonsense is going to be gone. You can't, you try to run a tyranny in Canada. People have a legacy. We have a history. We've been born and understood in the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And we now have people in our legal aspect and in our political aspect that don't even know what that means. And so we're going to constantly be, seeing these kind of things. They didn't do anything wrong. They did nothing wrong. Mischief, this is the first time that Mischief ever went to court. First time that Mischief, my understanding, that Mischief was even given a sentence. Mischief was, from my understanding, here again, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but mystery before, if you were doing something, as a menace or whatever, you got fined. But that's about it. To think that Tamara and all of these people that have been involved have a criminal, stripe against them, which causes pain for the rest of their life, is unbelievable. And I just got one verse, Matthew chapter 7, verse 2. For with the judgment you use, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, you will be measured.
Yeah, well, mischief in my day was kids just doing ding dong ditch, ringing people's doorbell and taking off running. I mean, that was kids doing mischief. Now it's kind of changed. John, do you have something to say to what Alan mentioned?
Well, it's outrageous to hear the Crown prosecutors in Ontario. They have publicly complained about underfunding, and they don't have the resources, they don't have the staff to push to trial people who are accused of sexual assault. Used to be known as rape. Now it's sexual assault, murder, aggravated assaults. There are people charged with very serious crimes. And the Supreme Court of Canada some years ago said that if somebody's charged with a serious crime, the trial must take place within 30 months. That's not unreasonable. It's fair to the accused person. It's fair to the victim. You got to have the trial within 30 months. Crown prosecutors in Ontario are routinely, we see people walking away without a trial, stay of proceedings, because the Crown couldn't get its act together and bring people to trial within 30 months. And they say they're under-resourced, and yet they spent massive amounts, probably millions of tax dollars on this prosecution against Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, with a trial that dragged on for weeks. Getting my dates, 49 days that Tamara Lich spent in jail. I don't know if the days of the trial was also close to 49, but it was a very, very, very lengthy trial. To what, at the end of the day, they got two people convicted of mischief, whereas the people accused of rape and murder are walking away for free, walking away without there having been a trial.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to another topic because I got some comments that probably they're funny, but I shouldn't say them. Anyway, Canada's federal government is facing criticism for agreeing to amend the World Health Organization, the WHO, regulations that could grant the WHO Director General authority to declare health emergencies and impose mandates such as lockdowns and vaccine passports. Critics like you, John, argue that this move undermines Canadian sovereignty, democracy, and constitutional principles. I want to talk about this. This is ridiculous that we're handing over power to someone we don't even know. I don't even know who the Director General is of the WHO, but he has the power to lock us down, to demand vaccine passports, to shut down the mom and pop stores, to stop transfer. I mean, it's ridiculous amount of power we're giving to the WHO. I'm going to let you speak on that.
Well, it's kind of funny and sad and sick and twisted to see the same people who are thumping their chest talking about Canadian sovereignty. And so when US President Donald Trump talks about making Canada a 51st state, these people get very angry and upset. And they're supposedly, it's all about Canadian sovereignty. And yet these very same people will and are in the process of signing on to regulations that would empower the World Health Organization, the WHO, to dictate health policy in Canada, give them the power to declare a pandemic emergency so that, we can't make our own assessment about that. We're going to hand that power over to somebody else. And if a pandemic emergency is declared by the Director General of the World Health Organization, then he or she will also have the authority to dictate that the countries would impose lockdowns, travel restrictions, vaccine mandates, state surveillance, impose second-class citizenship on people who don't get injected with the latest safe and effective vaccine, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the good news is the important part of this that we must remember as well is that the World Health Organization has no police force. They have no army. They have no courts. They are completely powerless to enforce their decisions, their orders. So when the rubber hits the road, it'll really be up to who is governing, whether it's 6 months from now or 6 years from now or 60 years from now. When the rubber hits the road and the World Health Organization declares a pandemic emergency and starts issuing its orders, it's up to each country whether or not they're going to comply, whether or not they're going to obey. And whoever's governing Canada at that time, we don't know, right? 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, whoever's governing at that time, they can say, no, we're not doing this. We're going to develop our own health policies. And that's kind of the end of it, because the World Health Organization cannot send in an army or a police force to enforce its edicts.
Do you know the response of other countries like the United States, Germany, Italy, those kinds of countries? What was their response to this? And what can Canada learn?
So about roughly 5% of the countries in the world, about 10 countries, including the US and Germany, Austria, Italy, have said, no, we are not going to abandon our sovereignty. We're not going to abandon democracy. The whole idea of democracy is that the people have a say through their elected representatives in the laws by which they are governed. When you turn over power to unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats in Geneva, Switzerland, that's profoundly anti-democratic, because then those foreigners will make laws and impose those laws on Canada, and Canadians have no say in it. So what Canada should do is join the 5% and say, no, you know what? We can cooperate with other countries without submitting to a supranational authority, so an international authority. This could be true for environmental protection, for health, for stopping a virus. We can cooperate with other countries and do good things without submitting to a world government type of international authority.
Agreed. And is that what you suggest, how Canadians can voice their opposition to this, is to talk to their elected officials and basically
absolutely
ask them, hey, man, why don't we do what US did and Germany and Italy and all these other countries, and say, no, we're not going to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, you can contact and you can email your MP and say, we should withdraw from the international health regulations, and a Canadian politician should respect Canadian sovereignty, as they seem pretty keen on doing. Whenever President Trump talks about the 51st state, you hear this lot of screaming and chest thumping for sovereignty. So yet here, it's just a completely different. It's like, let's abandon our sovereignty and let's be ruled by foreigners.
That is a great point, especially for everyone's like, tell Trump to get his hands off. We're not going to be like mega, we're Canada. And it's like, okay, but you agree to the World Economic Forum telling you what to do, and the WHO. Hello. Alan, you have any comments? Anything you wish to say before we go?
We need prayer.
Anything that's not going to get you in trouble. Go ahead. I know you have lots to say, but anything that's not going to get you in trouble.
I'm not too worried about trouble. I just want to stay close to the Lord because He's in control. So, yeah.
Well, John, we really appreciate you. Everything you're doing at the Justice Center. We're definitely going to have you guys back because you're doing so much good, and we're following everything you're doing. We really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on your show. I look forward to next time.
Well, interesting conversation, Dad. I mean,
Yes.
A lot going on, but you know what? When we do our foundational verse, it really puts peace in my heart. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. God sees everything. He knows all things. He has a plan. He has a structure. There's universal laws in place. He'll clean up what needs to be cleaned up. He allows what he allows. And when man crosses the line, whether they're building the Tower of Babel or whatever they're doing, he counters it, correct?
Yeah, Psalm 47:9 says, the leaders of the earth belong to God. He is greatly exalted. So, kings, presidents, parliaments rise and fall.
Yeah.
But the throne of heaven never shakes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Carney, King Charles, sir, all the people that won wards and mayor situations and all the towns and provinces across the country, you belong to the Lord. You've been given a wonderful opportunity by the creator of the world to bring order and justice and peace into your communities. Just remember that. Dad, we're giving away a free booklet. It's called The Living Truth. It's a devotional study on 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. You can get it for free by going to our website, gotalktruth.com/resources. Fill out the form. We'll send it to you in the mail.
The book is fantastic, and hopefully you get it because we're going to keep giving you little tidbits about what living in truth means.
Yeah, it really helps. Grab the book. It's yours for free. If you want to help support our mission, keep this conversation and truth on the air, broadcast across our nation, we need your support. We are viewer supported. We don't take government funds or special interest group. It's only because of the generosity of those who give to this ministry. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com/donate. That way you can give digitally. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make your gift payable to Talk Truth and send it to 246 Stewart Grain Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H3C8. And if you're in the U.S., there's our U.S. address right there. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.